So this afternoon, as our presider mentioned, is an afternoon looking at proving the Bible true through archaeology. Firstly, what is archaeology? So archaeology is the study of ancient peoples and their cultures. The science of archaeology studies human life and its activities of ancient cultures by examining the artefacts, which are the products made by humans. The remains of ancient cities, dwellings, tools, the agricultural and household implements, weapons, religious artefacts, potteries, coins, etc., are studied to gain information about the cultures of these ancient civilizations. Although some archaeological studies are done above ground, for example, the pyramids, most archaeological work involves excavating to expose buried remains of past civilizations and cultures. Archaeological digs in Israel and other parts of the Middle East are constantly uncovering material from biblical times. It provides a tremendous amount of evidence to support the historical and geographical accuracy and reliability of the Bible. In fact, archaeology has never uncovered anything that contradicts the Bible. The archaeological findings have silenced many critics who claim that many of the Bible's historical facts are merely legends. So much scientific research today is done under relatively modern assumption that God doesn't exist, that science is incompatible with God and with the Bible. So is science incompatible with God? Is the Bible really just a handful of made-up stories set against a backdrop of real-life places? This afternoon, we'll try and find out. As we look deeper into the topic of archaeology, we can see this corner of science alone, this unearthing of historical fact, absolutely proves the Bible true. It shows that the Bible can be counted on more than any other history book to shed light on the true events of history. Of course, this is not the only field of science that proves God's existence, but it is one that continues to demonstrate the perfect record of the Bible and its authority as reliable and an inspired document. This afternoon, we will briefly examine 10 examples. Some are quite well known and others not as well known, of how archaeology proves the Bible true. Firstly, starting with the Stone. So in 1798, Napoleon invaded Egypt. He brought with him a scientific team of scholars and draftsmen to survey the monuments of the land. The most important find of the expedition was the Rosetta Stone. It proved to be valuable as the key to deciphering ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics. The stones dated to the period of Ptolemy V in 204 to 180 BC and was inscribed in 3 scripts: Demotic, Greek and hieroglyphic. The Greek, well known to scholars at the time, proved to be a translation of the ancient Egyptian language on the stone. Translation of the hieroglyphics marked the beginning of the study of ancient Egyptian texts and grammar and provided the basis for modern Egyptology studies. Number 2, the Dead Sea Scrolls. In 1947, shepherds stumbled upon a cave in a rugged, arid area on the western side of the Dead Sea. What they discovered was soon announced as the greatest archaeological find of the 20th century. Over the next few years, other similar remote caves in the area were found. What did these caves contain? These caves contained over 800 fragmented documents, mainly consisting of Hebrew writings on leather with a couple on parchment, including fragments of 190 biblical scrolls. Most of these are small, containing no more than 1/10 of the book. However, a complete Isaiah scroll was also found. Almost every Old Testament book was present, and there were also other writings valued by the community that dwelt in those caves. It appears that the earliest scrolls date to the mid-3rd century BC, and most to the 1st or 2nd centuries BC. Perhaps the greatest contribution to this find is to our understanding of the transmission of the biblical text. It is encouraging to see that the differences are very small between the Old Testament texts of the Dead Sea Scrolls and various editions of the Hebrew text produced thousands of years later and used today. Number 3 is the Tel Dan Inscription. So the Tel Dan Inscription, or House of David inscription, was discovered in 1993 at the site of Tel Dan in northern Israel in an excavation directed by Israeli archaeologist Avraham Baran. The broken and fragmented inscription shows the victory of an Armenian king over his two southern neighbours, the king of Israel and the king of the house of David. In the carefully engraved text, written in neat Aramaic characters, the Armenian king boasts that he, under the divine guidance of the god Hadad, vanquished several thousand Israelite and Judahite horsemen and charioteers before personally dispatching both of his royal opponents. Unfortunately, the recovered fragments of the House of David inscription do not preserve the names of the specific kings involved in this encounter. But most scholars believe the stela recounts a campaign of Hazael of Damascus in which he defeated both Jehoram of Israel and Ahaziah of Judah. Number 4, the Ketef Hinnom Scrolls. These scrolls have a very well-known quote on them, and it goes like this: "May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord cause his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and grant you peace." This blessing might be one of the most recognisable verses spoken in ceremonies of both Judaism and Christianity today. Yet very few know that the priestly benediction or blessing is the earliest biblical verse ever to be discovered from ancient relics. Two small spools of silver, each wound securely and bearing the engraved phrase, were found in a tomb near Jerusalem. Tests concluded that the engraved silver dates back to around the earliest 6th century BC, more than 400 years older than the Dead Sea Scrolls. Apart from archaeological circles, these two scrolls, which contain the oldest citation of biblical texts in Hebrew, remain relatively unknown. These scrolls were discovered in 1979 by Israeli archaeologist Gabriel Barkay while excavating a burial cave at Ketef Hinnom, just southwest of Jerusalem. The typical Judean burial at the time took place in a rock-cut cave. When a person died, he was placed on a burial bench in the tomb along with personal items such as vases, jewellery or other trinkets. Once the body decayed, the bones of the person were placed in a box beneath the burial bench. When the team began to excavate the box, they came upon these two small silver scrolls. Since the scrolls were metal, the archaeologists had a difficult time unrolling and deciphering their text. They began with the larger of the two scrolls, which took 3 years to unroll. When unrolled, it measured only 7.6 centimetres long. When they finished, they noticed that the scroll was covered with very delicately etched characters. The first word that they were able to decipher was the name Yahweh. After much work, they were able to read the entire scroll, and it contained the priestly blessing from Numbers chapter 6. The smaller scroll also contained the blessing from Numbers chapter 6. These two scrolls are relatively unknown and can be seen today in the Israeli Museum in Jerusalem. Number 5 is the Moabite Stone. In 1868, a missionary in Jerusalem found a stone tablet for sale that appeared to be from ancient times. The sellers of this stone broke the tablet into a number of pieces to sell them one at a time to make more money. Fortunately, a copy of the tablet was made prior to it being broken, and this copy is still on display today in the Louvre. On the tablet is written in Moabite during the 9th century BC, and possibly a victory stone erected by King Mesha to commemorate his military achievements. This text begins, "I am Mesha, son of Chemosh, king of Moab." Visible in the text is the king's version of a war fought with Israel in 850 BC, in which Moab revolted against King Jehoram of the northern kingdom of Israel soon after the death of Ahab. What's interesting is that the Bible records the same incident in 2 Kings chapter 3. However, the two accounts differ in perspective. Mesha emphasises his victory over Israel in capturing cities under Israelite control, and the biblical writer, on the other hand, highlights Israel's successful counterattacks against the Moabites. Number 6 is the Lachish Letters. In the 1930s, J.L. Starkey excavated the site of Lachish. He discovered a layer of debris heavily destroyed and burned with fire at the hands of the Babylonians under Nebuchadnezzar in 589 to 588 BC. These letters are a collection of texts engraved at biblical Lachish in southern Israel and date to the years immediately before the site's destruction by the Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar in the early 6th century BC, as described by the book of Jeremiah. Although only a few of the inscriptions remain readable, the information they provide has made them a key to understanding and interpreting historical events surrounding the fall of the kingdom of Judah, especially as some may link directly to the events recorded in Jeremiah. Starkey unearthed 18 ostraca in the burnt debris of a guard room between the inner and outer gates of the city. An ostracan is an inscription written in ink on pottery shards. Most of the ostraca were correspondence, although a few listed some names. The contents of the ostraca were incomplete, and only a third of them are well enough preserved to be understandable. One of the letters closes with this statement: "Let my Lord know that we are watching for the signals of Lachish according to all the indications which my Lord hath given, for we cannot see Hezekiah." Number 7, the Epic of Gilgamesh. In 1872, George Smith announced that he had discovered an Assyrian account of the flood among tables stored in the British Museum from excavations of mid-century BC in Nineveh. Called the Epic of Gilgamesh, the story comprises of 12 tablets, with one tablet containing a tale of a great deluge. The hero of the flood, a man named Utanispium, relates an episode to Gilgamesh. He explains how the god Ea warned him about an approaching judgment and told him to build a boat to save his life from the watery onslaught. As the tale unfolds, in some respects, it is nearly identical to the biblical narrative of Noah in Genesis 6 to 9. This discovery created quite a stir among biblical scholars of the 19th century, and even today, scholars continue to puzzle over and debate the obvious parallels between the two. Number 8 is Hezekiah's tunnel. The most dependable water source for the city of Jerusalem during the Israelite settlement was the Gihon Spring. However, its location outside the city was a problem. During an attack or a siege, the inhabitants were cut off from their vital water source. In 1867, explorer Charles Warren discovered a vertical shaft cut through bedrock, allowing the people of Jerusalem to reach the waters of the Gihon Spring from behind the city walls. This shaft was probably built by the Jebusites and may be how David's soldiers captured the city from them in 2 Samuel chapter 5. A new water system using part of this earlier one was built by Hezekiah near the end of the 8th century due to an Assyrian military threat. Hezekiah's tunnel sloped gently away from the Gihon Spring to allow water to flow from it to the pool of Siloam inside the city walls. Hezekiah's tunnel was cut by two teams digging towards each other from opposite ends. It was not chiselled in a straight line, but snaked its way along due to the frequent shifts in the terrain. The two teams made adjustments as they drew near to one another and heard the picks of the other team. An inscription 6 metres from the Siloam pool has been discovered that describes the meeting of the two teams, which leads us into number 9, the pool of Siloam. According to the Gospel of John, the Siloam pool was where Jesus healed the blind man. This pool had always been considered one of Christianity's most sacred sites, although its exact location remained somewhat unclear. The precise location was only confirmed in June 2004 when construction workers attempting to repair a water pipe to the south of Jerusalem's Temple Mount uncovered several ancient steps and part of a colossal pool that dated to the age in which Jesus lived. The Siloam pool was found next to the area known as the King's Garden, on the ridge identified as the City of David. It is surrounded by several other significant archaeological sites, such as the remnant of an ancient church dating to the 5th century, located just southeast of this pool. Its discovery marked a historic moment in the field of biblical archaeology. Our last example we'll look at this afternoon is the Pilate Stone. In 1961, archaeologists discovered a plaque fragment at Caesarea Maritima, an ancient Roman city along the Mediterranean coast of Israel. The plaque was written in Latin and embedded in a section of steps leading to Caesarea's theatre. The Pilate Stone is historically significant because it dates to Pilate's own lifetime. It is contemporary evidence, yet powerfully illustrating the random nature of archaeological discovery. The excavators could have easily missed it, simply discarding it as rubble. By the 4th century, it had been incorporated into a set of stairs in Caesarea's Herodian's theatre. There, the inscription faced downward, fortunately because that position preserved it from being worn away. The Bible has received more criticism than any other book known to man. Yet no other book is like it. Having been written so long ago by so many different authors, in so many different locations and being proved accurate time and time again. Truly, the Bible is a magnificent historical record, matching perfectly with scientific discoveries. As much as people try to discredit the Bible through science, nothing has proved it false. And if some biblical event, place, or person hasn't yet been confirmed through archaeology, all we need to do is wait. New discoveries are being made constantly. The accuracy of the Bible has been, and still is, being revealed. Let's think about what this means for our life. The Bible is true, and we can prove it. It's right about all these historical, geographical, and cultural details. This is undeniable evidence that is also accurate and trustworthy regarding the plans, expectations, and commands of its author and our Creator. We'll finish with a verse from 2 Timothy chapter 3. All Scripture is given by inspiration of God and is profitable for doctrine, for reproof, for correction, for instruction in righteousness.